Hello， 各位观众朋友们，大家好，欢迎收看《老外看台湾》，我是郝毅博，很高兴又跟大家见面了。最近我发现有一部很有意思的英文纪录片在台湾上映，大家可能已经都知道了，就是《Invisible Nation》看不见的国家。那因为这部电影在美国现在是看不到的，可是我实在很好奇，所以我联络了这部电影的导演Vanessa Hope， 问他能不能让我有机会可以看到这部片，同时我也做了采访，跟他聊聊在台湾这个看不见的国家看见了什么。Thank you so much, Vanessa, for coming on the show. I've watched the movie. I thought it was great, and I was really excited to talk to you about it. And congratulations on the release of the film in Taiwan and everything. Now, last I checked, it was like one of the top 10 documentaries in Taiwan, but I think the stats have changed actually, because that was like 2 weeks ago. So why don't you fill us in on exactly what those statistics are?
We're one of the top 5 documentaries of all time in Taiwan's history now.
Wow.
So, we're very honored.
Yeah,
we're very honored. It's very unexpected.
Yeah, that's really amazing of all time. And how much, I think you said that, how much has it taken at the box office?
It's close to 27 million, or it's exceeded 27 million new Taiwan dollars right now.
Wow. Congratulations for that.
Thank you.
But before we start talking about the film, I want to give some background. Yeah. So just for the benefit of the audience, could you just tell us a little bit about your history and your education and your whole background?
I went to the University of Chicago undergraduate. I looked at East Asian studies and anthropology and graduated with honors, and then went to Columbia University in New York City and continued the same studies, East Asian history and anthropology, and then I transitioned into film. But because I started learning Chinese early, first in Beijing, then in Taiwan, I was fascinated with international relations and geopolitics. So I went to work at a think tank in New York City called the Council on Foreign Relations. And the people I met there were very influential in inspiring me to make my first film, which followed basically the U.S. ambassador to China, John Huntsman, all over China.
Another Chinese-speaking Westerner, right? I think.
Very, very good Chinese he has, yes. And I finished it, and it was out. It went to Tribeca and many film festivals, and it was released, and then that was end of 2015. So I had been tracking Taiwan's story all this time, from basically the first days I ever lived in Taiwan, which was 1995-96 as a student. Wow. And it was also the first time I ever used a film camera, was to run around filming during Lee Teng-hui's inauguration weekend. It was very exciting. And then when I stopped with the first film and lifted my head to think about the second film, I knew that Taiwan should not just be wedged into a US-China story, that's part of what Taiwan is struggling against. And I knew I didn't really know enough about Taiwan's story. And the only way to learn it would be going to Taiwan, living in Taiwan, listening to the people of Taiwan. And I thought, you might elect your first female president there. And so I went without a crew. I met a local film crew. I began working with them. We filmed everything in that week leading up to the election, not knowing if President Tsai would win. We met every party. We met all these different politicians. And then I was in the crowd when she won. And it was so inspiring, incredible. And I just thought, this is historic. If there's any way on earth to gain access to her and her story, it would be so meaningful and significant. That's how this started.
Wow. And so you did, get in touch with her people and actually get her as an interviewee. I mean, she's interviewed several times throughout the movie, isn't she?
Never dreamed of being a president. Initially, we have to do that again.
What was that process like?
Well, actually, I've heard, since I was interviewed in Taiwan a lot when I was there a couple of weeks ago, that we somehow have interviewed President Tsai more than any other journalist. And I have many journalist friends in Taiwan who were jealous and wondered how this access came about. I had this idea after her win And I went to a producer I've worked with on the first film named Geraldine Dreyfus, who's won an Oscar. And she said, I think you might be able to get a grant to start the film. There's a foundation in San Francisco focused on women, peace, and security, which she knew was an interest of mine. And so first we needed to know that there might be some financing available. So that I went down that road and applied for the financing. Then I needed to submit an official proposal to the president's office. And for that, we had the help of a local Taiwanese producer named Feng Xianxian, Sylvia Feng, who really was invaluable. I would say she was tremendously helpful. She was on the ground when we were here, and she could submit the proposal. They took the normal 6 months to get back to us about whether we would even have a first meeting with President Tsai. So in April, they invited us back. In 2017, they said, why don't you interview some other people? Maybe you'll get an interview with President Tsai. And on the last day before we were scheduled to leave, we were invited to the presidential office building, to a big conference room, our team, her team. We were pitching and talking for a while. President Tsai came in last. She sat at the head of the table, listened to us for a minute, and engaged us, interviewed us, started to leave the room, which was a little disheartening, turned around at the door, nodded her head, quickly closed the door and scooted out of the room. And her side of the table erupted in excitement and applause. And then we finally understood, oh, that was a green light. Now this is going to happen.
The little nod was her green light.
Little nod, yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to come back to talking about the film in just a moment. Okay. But let's talk a little bit about Taiwan, because I know you spent time in Taiwan. Can you tell us about your experiences there?
Well, filming this movie gave me more of an opportunity to visit and live in Taiwan than I've ever had before. So I'm very moved by the kind of trust you find in society in Taiwan, the safety when you're on the streets, the sense of civic engagement. It's all there. And
what are some of your favorite places in Taipei or in Taiwan in general?
Well, I am a bit nostalgic and sentimental, so I'm still partial to Yongkangjie because I lived there when I was a student in 95, 96, and I went to the first ever Din Tai Fung right there. And when I made that first short documentary, I filmed there, the dumpling making. And that footage is in this film, actually. I did love Jiufen, which is location, some people say inspired Hayao Miyazaki's Spirited Away.
That's cool. And I know a lot of people wonder, because most interviews I've seen with you are in English, but my producer said, oh, there's one interview where she said, 谢谢你. So we wondered if you speak Chinese. So you have studied a bit, right?
谢谢你 is like the very bare minimum. Yes, it's funny because I'm so impressed with your Chinese and watching your videos, and I'm jealous too because I feel like if I stayed and never came back to the US, I could really have practiced my language skills more, because it's a lot of practice a lot of the time, and my listening is much better now than my speaking.
我们的观众可能想要知道你的中文到底怎么样，你要不要说几句？
我的中文还可以，我觉得 ，Yeah。我应该进步。
很好。那你有中文名字吗？一定有。
有啊，我中文名字是葛静文。
很好。
And I can tell you the movie name is 看不见的国家。
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. 看不见的国家。
There you go, Chinese. Yeah.
Oh yeah, this is a great question because I love going to Taiwan, and there's always certain things I miss when I come back to the US, like the night markets and the 牛肉面, the beef noodles. What do you miss when you come home?
Well, I mean, I know that there is a Din Tai Fung here in Los Angeles, but it's not the same as in Taipei. So I do love xiaolongbao, and I love pea shoots, I love doumiao. And I do love Jeonju Naicha, and I know that has caught on internationally, but it's still the best in Taiwan.
So I know you've been to Beijing too, right? Because you mentioned that you studied in Beijing as well. What do you feel sort of the differences between being in China and being in Taiwan?
They're pretty night and day, and I first lived in Beijing as a student in 1991. So actually that was really close to after Tiananmen Square, and it was very quiet and closed down. And I certainly always had the feeling like we had to be very careful what we said, and maybe we were being watched. I have spent years going to China, actually, mostly Beijing. So I do love like the 798 Art District. I've worked with Chinese filmmakers. My edit team in Taipei actually works with Chinese filmmakers. That's partly why they're anonymous in our credits, because they don't want to get those filmmakers in trouble. But it is sad the level of repression you feel in Beijing. Everything has to be underground. The Chinese filmmakers I worked with, they make films that go to international film festivals but are otherwise underground. Wow. And in Taipei, I always tell people, and this is true, the first week we came back to film with the permission of the president's office in May of 2017, there was an exhibit in the presidential office building called Power to the People. And it was an exhibit of the history of Taiwan's democracy. Do you feel this freedom of speech and the press and communication and politics? All of it is valued and practiced because I think Taiwan is so aware of what it once was to be under martial law.
The previous director I had on this show before you was a guy called Qi Bolin, who I don't know if you've heard of him or not, but he made a movie called Taiwan, Beyond Beauty, Taiwan from Above.
Oh, you met him. I didn't ever meet him, but I know.
Yeah, you know about him, right? So his movie was cool. I mean, very sadly, he passed away in a helicopter accident.
Yes, and I know that too.
Yeah.
That's really sad.
And he was a very nice guy, but his movie was called 看见台湾, and your movie is called 看不见的国家. So I was just wondering, like, how did you come up with the concept to call it that, the idea of an invisible nation?
The idea started to develop once I really understood Taiwan's history of being excluded from international organizations, having their diplomatic allies picked off, having their very existence questioned or misunderstood on the global stage. And I feel like they're such an important democracy that we actually really should everyone know about and embrace. And therefore, it's a mirror on us, really, of what it is to stand up for what we believe in and values and democracy, human rights, freedom of speech, all of it. All of us who care about that are almost in solidarity thanks to Taiwan, really should be in solidarity thanks to Taiwan. But that invisibility must be overcome, I think, for Taiwan to last without being
of course.
taken over.
De facto independence as opposed to de jure independence is kind of the thing that makes it invisible, isn't it? It's only, unofficially exists kind of thing.
Obviously, it's a country, and it's never been controlled by the People's Republic of China. And in all international agreements post-World War II, there's nothing ceding Taiwan's sovereignty to China or anyone else. So it's a matter of obfuscation on the part of China and confusion on the part of the international community, I think.
Actually, the funny thing is I've even heard when I was at university, kids, exchange students from China who were kids, a son of a communist official, like a high-level official who worked in the embassy, even say, yeah, we know it's a country. Just that simple. Like, yeah, we know it's a country. Yeah. We need a visa to go there, of course. But the masses in China are kind of deluded. Like all the high-level people, they know the real situation, you know?
Right.
Let's talk about the making of the film. Why did it take 8 years to make?
Honestly, once President Tsai did run again, and the Hong Kong crackdown happened around that time, and then Russia's invasion of Ukraine happened, we knew that this was finally helping the international community and even the film community better understand why we were already interested in this story, why we were already focused on what Taiwan feels and wants for its future and why its own self-determination was so important to it. But President Tsai very much spoke to that, symbolized that, and having that special access meant we should follow her 2 terms.
Right. Yeah, I remember I wasn't there for her first election, but I was in Taiwan in 2020 when the second one happened, which I believe was a really record-breaking number of votes that she got, I think.
The first time, too. It was record-breaking the first time. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I first went to Taiwan in 2008, actually. And I remember I had like an internship at a TV station there, and I was, serving as a cameraman. And within about a month of being there, I'd already seen Tsai Ing-wen. And the reporter said to me, "Oh, film her, because she's the leader of the opposition." And what I saw was just this lady in one of those triangular straw hats, just on the street at a parade, right? And I couldn't believe how kind of easy it was just to film this major political figure, right? Like if it was in the US, there would be all like Secret Service around, even for the leader of the opposition. It made me think like Taiwan's kind of interpretation of democracy at times is like really interesting and really cute. Like sometimes you'll just see like a major political figure just riding on a truck or something. Like
that sense of pride, actually, that we are a society that cares about each other. We take care of each other. We believe in politics, democracy, representation. We want to do our best for each other, and we're going to go out and make it happen. And
what were some of the the major challenges in making this film?
Feeling a deep responsibility to President Tsai and Bi Kim Hsiao, Chun Ju, Wu Pei, Freddie Lim, every single person we got to meet. And when it was most challenging, I would just tell myself, but I'm doing this for the people of Taiwan, and they're living on the front lines of this authoritarian threat. So it's whatever I'm experiencing is nothing compared to what people there are living with.
And was there any pressure from the Chinese regime when you were making this film or when it was being released?
Ultimately, it was indirect pressure. It's more knowledge that so many of the global streaming platforms are in the China market, or they want to be in the China market, and therefore agree to China's party line about Taiwan, that it is a part of China, which China claims, but is obviously not true if you listen and visit Taiwan and understand Taiwan stories. So there was the global streaming platform or the distribution challenges, festivals too, politically concerned about backlash on them. So the bigger ones were afraid to take us, so we started smaller.
I want to talk a little bit about, we've kind of discussed the movie, I want to talk about your observations of Taiwan. I know that because the movie was being filmed for so long, in that time there have been, I guess you would say, changes perhaps in public opinion in Taiwan. I think, back when Ma Ying-jeou was president, at first people were kind of like optimistic about his approach. I guess that's why they elected him. But over the years we've kind of seen that perhaps it was too good to be true, and you then had the occupation of the parliament. I think it was 2014, if I remember correctly, which is kind of a catalyst for Tsai Ing-wen to get elected. And then we started seeing all the stuff going on in Hong Kong, which has been equally crazy. I guess that started in 2014 and got even more serious later on. So have you observed, how Taiwan's view of China has changed and how the politics has changed over all those years?
People don't feel the same way about a one country, two systems policy, which was the idea Deng Xiaoping came up with, always intending it for Taiwan, but testing it first on Hong Kong. And for the people of Taiwan to witness what happened to the people of Hong Kong when the People's Republic of China cracked down on them, and their peaceful protests that began in 2019. I won't go into details. That's a little bit in our film. But the upshot was that this one country, two systems deal was violated because China was clearly saying, no, whatever democratic freedoms, freedom of speech, freedom of the press that you once enjoyed, Hong Kong, are ending. And people in Taiwan can't be delusional about what it would be like to have China take over their country.
What do you think would be sort of the best future outcome for Taiwan?
The best future outcome, I think, is for Taiwan to be understood, globally recognized, secure, in peace, not invaded, not going through war, not being forced to make a formal declaration of independence, because, as you said, they're de facto independent. All of that is existing. And to be, supported by an international community through respect and admiration and peace.
And what would you say to people, if someone says Taiwan is part of China or Taiwan should be part of China, what is the best way you have to refute the CCP's claim on Taiwan? The best explanation?
The facts of history, which we have in our film because it matters, are that Taiwan has never been a part of the People's Republic of China. And so this claim is false. And that, there are no international treaties or resolutions that give any authority to the People's Republic of China over Taiwan. The resolution 2758 in the UN that the People's Republic of China is twisting to suggest that it means a one China policy, and therefore Taiwan is part of China, and the UN says that. That's not true.
Is that the resolution that says only one China will be recognized?
Yes, essentially. That's a little bit in our film too, because there was a moment where it would have been possible to have a People's Republic of China and a Republic of China both in the UN, but Chiang Kai-shek and Mao clashed and they wouldn't agree. Each one of them wanted to be the only one representing.
But now the CCP twists that to say that there's one China and Taiwan's part of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's twisted. It's completely outrageous that China should speak for Taiwan. Under no circumstances should any leader speak for Taiwan other than the leaders of Taiwan. And if we haven't learned that by now, we are never going to find a way forward for global peace and security in this world. It's the same as you cannot leave Ukraine out of a discussion of Ukraine's future.
Right.
And so Taiwan needs to negotiate its own future, period.
Many of our viewers are in Taiwan. Almost all of our viewers are in Taiwan. Do you have anything you'd like to say to them directly? 你也可以练习一点中文 or say in English, whatever you want.
我现在不能练习中文. It's such an important message to tell Taiwan that you are not alone.
Maybe like, would they say you're not alone? Or 我们支持台湾人, Taiwan, 我们支持你, we support you.
Yes, exactly. Taiwan, 我们支持你. Yeah, absolutely. And I've traveled the world and experienced that 支持, and I like love, not I-ching, the wrong kind of love. It's not romantic love, it's I. And also just warm feeling and appreciation and support for Taiwan. It's everywhere all over the world, and we're doing what we can to tap into it and to share it and to help Taiwan be recognized and appreciated and diplomatically supported.